The morning sun rose slowly over the kingdom of Eldoria, casting golden light across the towering walls of the royal palace. King Charles stood on the balcony of his private chambers, his sharp eyes observing the bustling courtyard below. Soldiers drilled in perfect formation, merchants prepared their stalls in the market beyond the palace gates, and the people moved with a rhythm that had existed for generations. Yet, despite the beauty of the morning, a shadow of unease rested on the king's shoulders. Inside the palace, the council chamber was filled with tension. King Charles sat at the head of the long oak table, flanked by his advisors. His face was stern, and his voice carried a weight that silenced the murmurs in the room. "I have received reports," he said, "that someone among my royal guard has betrayed the kingdom. This is a matter of utmost urgency." A hush fell over the chamber. The royal guard were not just soldiers. They were the king's most trusted protectors. They had sworn oaths to defend Eldoria and the royal family with their lives. To even consider betrayal among them was almost unthinkable. "Your Majesty," said Lord Bren, the chief advisor, his voice cautious, "we must be careful. Accusations without proof could ruin the honor of our guards and bring unrest to the kingdom." King Charles's eyes narrowed. "I do not act without reason, Bren. The reports are detailed. Someone has been meeting with strangers in the shadows planning against Eldoria. I will not wait for disaster to strike. I am ordering the arrest of the royal guard involved." A murmur spread through the room. Some advisors whispered to each other, fearful of the consequences. The royal guard were respected by all, and to see one taken in chains could shake the faith of the people. Outside the council chamber, the royal guard prepared for their daily duties, unaware of the storm brewing above them. Among them was a young guard named Darian. He had served the king faithfully for years and was admired for his courage and loyalty. His armor gleamed under the morning sun, and his sword rested easily at his side. Darian had no knowledge of any betrayal, but he could sense the tension growing in the palace. As the day unfolded, a messenger arrived at the royal guard barracks with a sealed command from King Charles. The captain of the guard, Sir Alric, read the order aloud. The words struck like thunder in the hearts of every guard present. "Effective immediately," Sir Alric said, his voice steady but strained. "The king has ordered the arrest of certain members of our guard. All are to report to the council for questioning." Darian felt a chill run down his spine. He glanced at his comrades, seeing confusion and fear mirrored in their eyes. "Who could it be?" whispered a fellow guard. "We all serve the king with loyalty." Darian shook his head. "I do not know, but we must trust the king's judgment." That evening, the council chamber was filled with guards standing at attention, their expressions a mixture of fear and determination. King Charles entered, his presence commanding silence. His eyes swept over the assembled guards, and for a moment the room seemed to hold its breath. "Some of you stand accused of treason," the king said, his voice firm but not unkind. "You will have the chance to speak, to tell the truth before judgment is passed. Eldoria has stood for centuries because we value loyalty. If you are innocent, the truth will protect you. If you are guilty, justice will be swift." One by one, the guards were questioned. Most answered with confidence, their loyalty unwavering. But as the king listened, he noticed subtle signs: hesitation in speech, nervous glances, small lies carefully hidden in their words. Yet none admitted to any wrongdoing. Darian's turn came last. He stepped forward, head held high, and met the king's gaze. "Your Majesty," he said, "I have served you faithfully. I know of no betrayal. My life, my honor, and my sword are yours." King Charles studied him carefully. There was something in Darian's eyes, a steadfast honesty that seemed to shine through every doubt. The king felt a flicker of doubt about the accusations he had received. Could it be that the true betrayal was more hidden, more clever than anyone suspected? Before the council could continue, a sudden commotion erupted at the palace gates. Soldiers ran toward the inner courtyard, shouting warnings. A rider from the outer lands had arrived, carrying urgent news. King Charles motioned for silence and listened as the rider dismounted. "Your Majesty," the rider said, bowing deeply, "I bring news from the northern borders. A small group of spies has been captured. They claim to have been sent by a foreign power to disrupt Eldoria. Their leader mentioned someone within your royal guard who has helped them move freely through the kingdom." The king's brow furrowed. "Did they name anyone?" he asked sharply. The rider shook his head. "No, Your Majesty, but they spoke of a guard who has a pure heart, one who could gain the trust of others easily. They did not suspect this guard. but they followed his actions closely. A tense silence filled the room. The king's mind raced. Could the spy be clever enough to hide the betrayal, or was this an error, a misunderstanding that threatened to destroy the honor of innocent men? Darian stepped slightly forward, his voice calm. Your Majesty, if there is a spy among the guards, it is not I. I pledge to aid you in finding the truth, to protect the kingdom and the people. King Charles nodded slowly, considering the young guard's words. There was a weight in his heart, a conflict between duty and instinct. To arrest the royal guard without proof could cause unrest, but to ignore a possible traitor could endanger the entire kingdom. Very well, the king said at last. Darian, I will grant you the task of uncovering the truth. You are to investigate quietly, without alarming the others. Find who among the royal guard has betrayed Eldoria, and bring the evidence to me. Darian bowed deeply. I will not fail you, Your Majesty. The next days were filled with quiet observation and careful questioning. Darian watched his fellow guards closely, noting every action, every word. He spoke with the palace staff, listened to rumors in the market, and examined even small details that might reveal the truth. During his investigation, Darian discovered something unexpected. One of the guards, a man named Fenric, had been acting strangely, disappearing at odd hours and speaking to strangers in whispers. Yet even Fenric's behavior did not directly prove treason. There was a possibility of a misunderstanding or a personal secret unrelated to the kingdom's safety. Darian faced a difficult choice. He could report Fenric and risk punishing an innocent man, or he could continue searching, hoping to find clearer evidence. He chose patience, knowing that true loyalty required wisdom as much as courage. One night, Darian followed Fenric quietly into the palace gardens. The moonlight reflected off the fountains, casting a silver glow on the marble paths. Fenric knelt by a hidden compartment near the fountain, placing a small package inside. Darian's heart pounded. Could this be proof of betrayal? He waited silently, careful not to be seen. As Fenric left, Darian approached the compartment. Inside, he found letters and documents, messages from foreign lands, but none were harmful. Instead, they spoke of peace, trade, and the well-being of Eldoria. Darian realized with relief that Fenric had been secretly negotiating on behalf of the kingdom, not against it. The next morning, Darian brought the discovery to King Charles. The king read the letters carefully, his stern expression softening. So it seems the truth is not always what we fear, he said quietly. Fenric has acted in secret to protect Eldoria, not to harm it. Darian bowed. Yes, Your Majesty. There is no betrayal among the royal guard, only loyalty in ways we may not always see. King Charles stood and looked out over the courtyard. The sun shone brightly, illuminating the palace and the people below. For a moment, he allowed himself a small smile, a rare warmth in his usually serious demeanor. The kingdom was safe, not because of fear or punishment, but because of trust, courage, and the honor of those who served it. In that moment, the king realized something important. True strength was not in commanding fear or ordering arrests, but in understanding the hearts of those who served him. And in the loyal eyes of Darian, he saw a reflection of the kingdom's hope and resilience. The royal guard would continue their duties, proud and faithful, unaware of how close they had come to losing the trust of their king. And King Charles would remember that day as the moment when one truth stopped him in his tracks, teaching him the value of patience, courage, and the power of loyalty. The kingdom of Eldoria continued to thrive, its walls strong, its people hopeful, and its royal guard steadfast, ready to protect their king and their home, guided by the courage of one young guard who had seen the truth. After the revelation about Fenric, King Charles felt a renewed sense of caution. He understood that accusations without proof could shake the kingdom, and he valued truth above all else. Darian had proven his loyalty and intelligence, but the king also knew that threats to Eldoria could come from unexpected places. The work of protecting the kingdom was never finished. That afternoon, Darian returned to his usual duties among the royal guard. Soldiers trained with swords and shields, their movements precise and disciplined. Yet Darian's mind was not on the drills. He thought about the letters Fenric had delivered secretly. They revealed foreign interests in Eldoria, but none seemed dangerous. Still, the possibility of hidden threats lingered. As he walked through the courtyard, Darian noticed a small group of palace staff huddled near the stables. They looked worried, whispering to one another. Curious, he approached them quietly. "Is everything all right?" he asked. One of the stable workers, an elderly man named Oren, looked up. "It is strange, sir. Supplies for the royal horses have been tampered with. We found the food stores open and some equipment moved. Nothing seems stolen, but someone was here in the night." Darian frowned. "Did anyone see who it was?" "No, sir," Oren replied. "But it is troubling. It could be nothing, yet it feels like someone testing the palace defenses." Darian nodded. He decided to investigate quietly. If someone had entered the palace unseen, it could be a warning or a sign of a spy. He thanked the workers and promised to look into it, careful not to cause alarm. That evening, Darian patrolled the palace walls, moving silently under the silver light of the moon. He inspected every gate, every corridor, and every watchtower. The palace seemed calm, but Darian trusted his instincts. Something was not as simple as it seemed. As he reached the stables, he noticed a shadow moving near the back entrance. He crouched low and approached silently. The figure was quick and small, slipping between the stalls. Darian called out, "Stop!" "Who goes there?" The shadow froze and turned. A young boy no older than 14 stood trembling. His clothes were dusty and he held a small bag tightly. I did not mean any harm," the boy stammered. "I was only trying to deliver a message." Darian lowered his sword slightly. "A message? From whom?" The boy hesitated, then whispered, "From the northern villagers. They want the king to know that something unusual is happening near the border. Strange lights appear at night and people hear voices in the forest. They fear danger." Darian's eyes narrowed. "Why did you not come to the palace before?" "They were afraid, sir," the boy said. "They do not trust outsiders. I had to come myself and I snuck in so I would not be stopped." Darian felt a mix of relief and concern. "You were brave to bring this message. I will deliver it to the king. Can you show me where the lights appear?" The boy nodded quickly, leading Darian through the quiet streets of Eldoria toward the northern outskirts. The journey was long but uneventful, and by the time they reached the edge of the forest, the moon had risen high. The villagers awaited them, their faces lined with worry. Darian greeted them respectfully and listened as they described the strange lights, the whispered voices, and the sense that something or someone was watching them. "These events are troubling," Darian said. "Have you seen anyone, any figures moving among the trees?" "No," said an elder woman. "Only the lights and the voices. Sometimes it feels as if the forest itself is alive, watching us." Darian examined the area carefully. The forest was dense, with shadows stretching like fingers under the moonlight. The strange lights were faint, flickering behind the trees. Darian's heart beat faster, sensing that this was more than a simple story. There was a pattern here, a hidden reason for the fear of the villagers. He returned to the palace quickly, accompanied by the boy, and reported the events to King Charles. The king listened intently, his expression serious. "This is troubling news," the king said. "It may be nothing, but we cannot ignore it. Darian, I trust you to investigate further. Find the cause of these lights and voices and report directly to me. Be careful and do not alert the villagers unnecessarily." Darian bowed. "I will not fail you, Your Majesty." The next morning he prepared for his journey north. He packed supplies, maps, and a small dagger, choosing a path through the forest that allowed him to remain unseen. He knew that patience and caution would be as important as courage. As he entered the forest, the air grew cooler and the sounds of the kingdom faded behind him. Birds chirped softly in the distance and the wind rustled through the trees. Yet the feeling of being watched never left him. Darian moved silently, alert to every movement and sound. Hours passed and the forest grew darker. Then in a clearing ahead he saw the lights. They were small glowing orbs that floated above the ground, moving slowly and deliberately. Darian crouched behind a tree, studying them carefully. The lights were not natural, he realized. They seemed to react to movement, shifting slightly as if following him. He needed to find the source without being seen. Suddenly, a figure appeared among the lights, a tall man dressed in a dark cloak, holding a staff that glowed faintly. His face was hidden, but his presence was commanding. Darian watched closely as the man moved with purpose, gesturing toward the lights as if guiding them. Darian's mind raced. Was this man a spy? A sorcerer? Or someone working for the kingdom in secret? He could not tell, but he knew he had to learn the truth. He waited until the figure moved deeper into the forest, then followed carefully, keeping to the shadows. After a time, the man stopped at a small hidden camp. Darian approached closer and overheard a conversation. "You have done well," the man said to another voice, younger and nervous. "The king's men do not suspect us. Soon our plan will be complete." Darian's heart sank. This was more serious than he had imagined. Someone was plotting against Eldoria, and the strange lights were only a part of the plan. He needed to return to the palace and warn the king. But as he turned to leave, a branch snapped beneath his foot. The cloaked man's head turned sharply. Darian ducked behind a tree, holding his breath. The man moved closer, his staff glowing brighter, and Darian knew he had to act carefully or be discovered. After a tense moment, the man returned to the camp, seemingly satisfied that the area was clear. Darian waited, then made his way back through the forest as quickly and quietly as he could. By the time he reached the palace, the sun was setting. He reported immediately to King Charles, detailing everything he had seen, the lights, the cloaked man, and the camp hidden in the forest. The king listened carefully, his face grave. "This is serious," he said. "We are no longer dealing with rumors. Eldoria faces a threat and we must act wisely. Darian, you have done well to uncover this. I will call the council and prepare a plan. You will continue to assist, but take care. The enemy is clever and their next move may be unpredictable." Darian nodded. "I understand, Your Majesty. I will be ready." That night, Darian reflected on the events. He had uncovered a mystery that could threaten the kingdom, and yet he had also learned the importance of patience, observation, and trust. The royal guard remained loyal, but threats could come from anywhere. He would need courage, wisdom, and the support of those who served Eldoria to face what was coming. And in the quiet of the palace, as the moonlight touched the walls and the kingdom slept peacefully, Darian felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The truth had saved the royal guard from false accusations, but now a greater challenge awaited. One that could decide the future of Eldoria itself. The kingdom was safe for the moment, but Darian knew that the days ahead would test him, the royal guard, and King Charles in ways they could not yet imagine. And he would be ready to face them with honor, loyalty, and courage as his guide. The morning sun bathed Eldoria in soft gold, but the palace was far from peaceful. King Charles had summoned the council to discuss the new threat Darian had discovered in the northern forest. The royal guard stood at attention in the chamber, their faces tense. No one had seen the cloaked figure before, yet the king knew the danger was real. "This is not a simple matter," King Charles said, his voice steady. "The forest lights and the camp indicate planning and intent. Someone seeks to undermine Eldoria. We must act with strategy, not haste." Darian stood beside the king, listening carefully. He could feel the weight of the moment. The responsibility of finding the cloaked figure and stopping whatever plot existed rested on him, at least in part. The king's trust gave him strength, but the challenge was enormous. "Your Majesty," said Lord Bren, the chief advisor, "we should increase patrols near the northern border. The villagers' reports are alarming. Perhaps we should send additional guards to secure the area." King Charles shook his head. "A show of force may alert the enemy. If they are clever, they will hide or flee. We need intelligence before action. Darian has already seen their camp. He will continue the investigation." Darian bowed. "I will go at once, Your Majesty. I will not fail." After the council meeting, Darian prepared for another journey north. He packed lightly but carefully, taking maps, provisions, and a small crossbow. He knew stealth would be necessary, as the enemy was aware of the kingdom's movements. As he entered the forest, the familiar feeling of being watched returned. Birds sang softly, and the wind whispered through the trees, but the forest seemed alive in a different way now, aware, almost cautious. Darian moved silently, scanning for the floating lights he had seen before. Hours passed before he spotted them again. The glowing orbs floated above the ground, drifting slowly as if carried by invisible currents. Darian crouched behind a tree and observed. The cloaked figure appeared, moving with purpose among the lights. This time Darian noticed more. Several young men and women were with him, helping to place objects and arranging patterns of the lights in a circle. Darian realized the group was not merely trying to scare villagers. They were performing a complex ritual, though its meaning was unclear. The air felt heavier around them, and the glowing lights seemed to respond to the leader's movements. He needed proof to show the king but had to remain unseen. Darian watched silently, taking mental notes of every action. Then something unexpected happened. The leader spoke, his voice low but commanding. "Tonight, the plan begins. Eldoria will bend to the strength of those who work in shadows. The king's men will not suspect until it is too late." Darian's heart pounded. The plot was serious, more dangerous than he had imagined. He needed to return to the palace immediately. But the group began moving deeper into the forest, and Darian realized he could gather more information if he followed cautiously. He waited until the cloaked figure's back was turned, then slipped silently through the trees. The forest grew darker and thicker. Strange noises echoed, a rustle of leaves, a snap of a twig, voices whispering in the distance. Darian kept his hand on his crossbow, ready for anything. Eventually, the group reached a hidden clearing he had not seen before. Ancient stones formed a circle in the center, and the ground was marked with symbols that glowed faintly under the moonlight. The cloaked figure spoke again, giving instructions to the others. Darian listened carefully. Though he could not understand all the words, he realized the ritual involved harnessing the lights to create a distraction or confusion in the kingdom. It was clever, dangerous, and subtle. If left unchecked, it could allow the enemies to act within Eldoria without detection. Darian decided to act. He returned to the palace before dawn, moving silently through the forest paths he knew well. Exhausted but determined, he reported everything to King Charles. The king's expression was grave, his eyes focused and sharp. "This is no longer a minor threat," King Charles said. "The enemies are organized, intelligent, and bold. Darian, you have uncovered an enemy hiding in plain sight. We cannot allow them to continue. You will lead a small team to observe, and we will prepare a strategy to protect the kingdom." Darian nodded, understanding the gravity of the task. He selected 3 guards he trusted completely. Fenric, who had proven loyalty and skill. Leora, a young woman known for her intelligence and sharp eyes. And Gavrin, strong and courageous. Together, they formed a team to follow the enemy without being detected. That evening, the team entered the northern forest. The air was cool, and shadows stretched across the paths. Darian signaled for silence, and they moved in a line, careful not to disturb the leaves or make noise. The glowing lights appeared again, floating above the ground and leading the group deeper into the trees. Darian's mind raced. Every step brought them closer to the enemy's camp, but he could not risk being discovered. He had learned patience from his earlier observations and now relied on it more than ever. Finally, they reached the clearing. The cloaked figure and his followers were at work again, arranging objects and speaking in low voices. Darian motioned for the others to stay hidden and watched carefully. "What are they doing?" Leora whispered, her voice barely audible. "They are preparing some kind of distraction," Darian replied. "Notice how the lights move and react to their commands. They are practicing, perfecting their plan." Gavrin clenched his fists. "Shall we attack?" Darian shook his head. "Not yet. We need proof for the king and must understand their plan. Rushing in could ruin everything." Hours passed as they observed. Darian noticed patterns in the ritual. The lights formed signals and the movement of the followers suggested coordination. Whoever led them was skilled, clever, and patient. It was clear that the enemies were not ordinary thieves or troublemakers. They were trained and dangerous. At last, the cloaked figure spoke words that Darian recognized from his earlier observation. "Tonight the signal will be sent. The kingdom will see only what we allow. The king will not suspect until it is too late." Darian knew the time for action would come soon. He memorized every detail, every movement, and every voice he could recognize. Then silently, the team retreated through the forest, avoiding the floating lights. Their return to the palace was slow but careful, ensuring they left no trace. Upon arriving, they reported immediately to King Charles. The king listened with intense focus, absorbing every detail. "This confirms our fears," he said. "The enemy is not merely in the forest. They are planning something within the kingdom, a distraction that could allow them to act freely. Darian, your courage and careful observation have saved us from a disaster, but the work is far from over." Darian bowed. "I understand, Your Majesty. We must act wisely but swiftly. The kingdom depends on it." King Charles's gaze softened slightly as he looked at the young guard. "Darian, you have proven yourself to be not only brave but wise. Eldoria is fortunate to have a protector such as you. We will need every loyal hand in the days ahead." The next morning, the kingdom of Eldoria prepared for the unknown. Guards were stationed discreetly at key points. Watchmen kept vigilant on the walls, and the council devised strategies to protect the people. Yet the citizens went about their daily lives unaware of the threat lurking in the northern forest. Darian, Fenric, Leora, and Gavrin continued their secret observation missions. Each day brought new discoveries. More followers of the cloaked figure, small movements suggesting an imminent plan, and increasing signs of danger. The tension grew, but so did the team's determination. In the palace, King Charles studied maps, reports, and advice from his council. He realized that leadership was not only about commanding strength, but also about listening to truth and acting with wisdom. Darian's discoveries had prevented a mistake that could have weakened the kingdom, and now the king trusted him more than ever. As night fell, Darian returned to the northern forest once again. The glowing lights floated ahead as if inviting him deeper. The forest no longer felt entirely dark or dangerous. Darian felt a strange sense of purpose, knowing that his courage, patience, and loyalty would guide him. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it with honor, ready to protect Eldoria and its people. The kingdom slept under the watchful eyes of its royal guard, unaware that the enemy was clever, patient, and determined. And in the heart of the forest, a plan was unfolding that could challenge everything they held dear. Darian knew the coming days would test him like never before, and he would need every skill, every ounce of courage, and every ally to face the trials that awaited. The days that followed were tense in the kingdom of Eldoria. King Charles had increased vigilance, but the threat from the northern forest loomed large. Darian, Fenric, Leora, and Gavrin continued their secret observations, uncovering more followers of the cloaked figure. Each day, the enemy grew bolder, testing the defenses of the kingdom and preparing for something larger. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Darian and his team set out for the forest once again. The air was cool, and shadows stretched across the paths like long fingers. The glowing lights had become more frequent, hovering above the forest floor and moving in patterns that suggested communication. Darian's heart beat faster as he realized the enemy was preparing for a decisive move. As they approached the clearing, they saw the cloaked figure speaking with his followers. The figure's staff glowed brightly, illuminating the ancient stones and the circle of symbols on the ground. The lights hovered above the stones, moving in a rhythm that seemed almost magical. Leora whispered, "They are ready. Whatever they plan, it will happen soon." Darian nodded. "We must observe closely but remain hidden. We need proof and understanding before the king acts." The cloaked figure raised his hands and the lights seemed to pulse in response. The followers moved in a coordinated pattern, placing small devices around the circle. Darian could not identify what they were, but he knew the objects were crucial to the enemy's plan. Suddenly, a faint sound reached Darian's ears, the breaking of a twig nearby. He signaled for the team to stop, but before they could react, a shadow moved along the trees. A figure stepped into the clearing, unfamiliar and cautious, holding a small lantern. Darian's heart skipped a beat. Was this a new enemy or a spy for the kingdom? He held his crossbow ready but did not act yet, waiting for clarity. The cloaked figure spoke sharply. "Who goes there?" "Identify yourself." The newcomer hesitated, then dropped the lantern. A soft glow lit his face, revealing a young man, frightened but determined. I'm not your enemy," he said. "I have information for the king. Please listen to me." The cloaked figure's reaction was swift. He stepped forward, staff raised, his followers tense and alert. The lights shimmered around him, creating a faint barrier between the newcomer and the group. Darian realized he had to act carefully. One wrong move could alert the enemy and ruin everything. He signaled Fenric and Gavrin to be ready, while Leora prepared to intercept if needed. The young man spoke quickly. "I am from the northern village. I saw the preparations of your group and I wish to warn the king. You are planning something that will harm Eldoria. I can help prevent it if you release me to go." The cloaked figure's eyes narrowed beneath his hood. "And why should I trust you? How do I know you are not a spy?" "I am loyal to Eldoria," the young man said firmly. "I have no reason to harm my own people. Please do not let innocent lives be endangered." For a tense moment, the forest was silent except for the soft glow of the lights. Darian's team remained hidden, watching every movement carefully. The cloaked figure lowered his staff slightly, then gestured to his followers. "Enough," he said, his voice controlled. "Bring him to the center." We will test if he speaks truth or deception. Darian's heart raced. He knew the young man's fate could influence the outcome of the enemy's plan. He also realized that the cloaked figure's confidence might be a weakness. They had underestimated the vigilance of Eldoria's royal guard. The young man was led into the circle of stones. The lights pulsed more rapidly, responding to the cloaked figure's gestures. Darian observed closely, noting the timing and patterns of the lights. The circle seemed to be a mechanism for communication or signaling, possibly to allies beyond the forest. Darian signaled Leora, "We need to act soon. If we wait too long, they will complete whatever they are preparing." Leora nodded, readying a small device she had brought to create a distraction. Fenric and Gavrin positioned themselves strategically to prevent the cloaked figure or his followers from escaping. As the cloaked figure raised his staff again, the lights responded, forming a swirling pattern above the stones. Darian saw his chance. With precise timing, Leora activated her device, releasing a soft, bright flare into the forest. The lights flickered and shifted unpredictably, momentarily confusing the enemy. Darian and the team moved quickly, emerging from the shadows. "Step away from him," Darian commanded, pointing his crossbow at the followers. The sudden appearance startled the enemy, and the young man took the opportunity to step back from the circle. The cloaked figure's hood fell slightly, revealing a determined face. "You dare interfere?" he demanded. Darian's eyes met his. "Your plans end here. You will not harm Eldoria or its people." The followers hesitated, unsure whether to follow their leader or retreat. Fenric moved to secure the young man, while Gavrin and Leora created a barrier, forcing the followers back. The lights above the circle flickered and dimmed, losing their rhythm as the control of the cloaked figure weakened. For a moment, it seemed the enemy might regroup. The cloaked figure raised his staff again, but Darian had anticipated this. He aimed his crossbow carefully, aiming not to harm but to disable the staff. A precise shot struck the staff and it fell to the ground, its glow extinguished. The followers froze, confused and disoriented. Without the staff, the light stopped moving and the circle of stones lost its power. Darian stepped forward, confident but cautious. "Your plan is over," he said firmly. "Surrender now and no harm will come to you." The cloaked figure looked around at his followers, seeing the confusion and fear in their eyes. He realized resistance was futile. Slowly he nodded. "We surrender," he said, his voice quiet but resolute. Darian's team moved in, securing the group and gathering the stones and staff. The young man from the village stepped forward. "Thank you," he said to Darian. "If you had not acted, the kingdom might have suffered greatly." Darian nodded. "We must always protect Eldoria. It is our duty and our honor." As the group returned to the palace, King Charles awaited them in the council chamber. His eyes shone with relief and pride as he saw Darian and his team enter with the captured cloaked figure and his followers. "You have done well," the king said, his voice firm but warm. "Eldoria is safe because of courage, wisdom, and loyalty. Darian, your actions have prevented disaster." Darian bowed. "It was a team effort, Your Majesty. Each of us played a role and the truth guided us." King Charles nodded. "Let this be a lesson. Not all threats are visible, and not all actions are as they seem. But with loyalty and courage, Eldoria can face anything." The cloaked figure and his followers were carefully questioned. It became clear that they had planned to create confusion in the kingdom, hoping to take advantage of fear and distraction. Their plan had been clever, but they had underestimated the vigilance and intelligence of Eldoria's royal guard. In the following days, the kingdom celebrated quietly. The royal guard's loyalty and bravery were honored, though the details of the threat remained secret to most of the citizens. Darian, Fenric, Leora, and Gavrin received recognition from the king, not only for their courage but also for their wisdom and careful planning. King Charles reflected on the events. The day had shown him the importance of trust, patience, and careful observation. He realized that a strong kingdom required more than power. It required people willing to act with honor and integrity, even when danger was unseen. Darian continued his duties, but he also understood that vigilance would never end. The forest had tested him and he had succeeded, but the kingdom's safety was always a task that demanded attention, courage, and careful judgment. The lights in the northern forest no longer moved with purpose, and the kingdom of Eldoria slept safely, protected by those who acted with wisdom, honor, and loyalty. And Darien knew that as long as the royal guard stood ready, Eldoria would endure strong and unbroken no matter what challenges the future might bring. The kingdom of Eldoria awoke to a calm morning, a sharp contrast to the tension of recent days. The northern forest was quiet, the strange lights extinguished, and the cloaked figure and his followers safely in the palace under careful watch. Yet for King Charles, the work of leadership was never complete. He knew that threats could arise from anywhere, and the lessons of courage, loyalty, and wisdom must guide every decision. Darien stood on the palace balcony, looking toward the northern horizon. The forest, now calm, held no sign of danger. He felt a sense of relief but also responsibility. The events of the past days had tested him, and he knew vigilance was a constant duty. Fenric, Leora, and Gavrin joined him, their expressions a mixture of pride and quiet satisfaction. "The kingdom is safe for now," Darien said, "but we must remain ready. Danger does not always announce itself." Fenric nodded. "We have learned much about patience and observation. Courage alone is not enough," Leora smiled slightly, "and we have proven that teamwork and trust are stronger than fear or deception." Gavrin's gaze turned toward the forest. "The enemies will think twice before returning. Eldoria has guardians who are alert, brave, and clever." King Charles approached quietly, observing the young guards. His face, usually stern, held a rare softness. "You have done more than I could have expected," he said. "Eldoria owes you a debt of gratitude. But more than that, you have reminded me of something important. The kingdom's strength is not in walls or armies alone, but in the hearts of those who serve it faithfully." Darien bowed. "I am honored, Your Majesty, but our success is because of guidance, trust, and the unity of the royal guard. We act for Eldoria together." The king's gaze lingered on Darien. "You have shown loyalty, wisdom, and courage beyond your years. This day will be remembered not for the danger that came, but for the way it was met, with honor and truth." In the council chamber later that day, King Charles addressed the royal guard and advisors. The captured enemies had revealed the full extent of their plan. They sought to create chaos in Eldoria, hoping to weaken the kingdom from within. But they had misjudged the people and the loyalty of the guards. "Let this be a lesson," the king said, his voice clear and strong. "Fear is powerful, but so is truth. Deception can seem clever, but loyalty and courage will always prevail. The royal guard has demonstrated both, and Eldoria is stronger for it." The guards stood taller, pride shining in their eyes. They had faced uncertainty, observed danger without panic, and acted decisively when needed. Their honor was secure and their dedication to the kingdom unshakable. Darien reflected on the journey. From the moment the king first suspected betrayal, to discovering the hidden camp, to confronting the cloaked figure and preventing the ritual, every step had been a test of judgment and heart. He had learned that courage without thought could lead to mistakes, and that wisdom without action could allow danger to flourish. Fenric approached Darien quietly. "We make a good team," he said. "Each of us brings something the others do not. That is why we succeeded," Darien nodded, "and we must continue to act with that understanding. Our work is not done because one threat is gone. We serve the kingdom every day, even when the people do not see it." The king invited Darien and his team to join him for a private audience. In the quiet of the royal study, King Charles spoke with a rare warmth. "I have seen many guards serve Eldoria with loyalty, but few with the wisdom and courage you have shown. Darien, your actions have preserved the kingdom and taught me the value of careful observation and trust. I wish to reward you not with riches but with responsibility." Darien's eyes widened. "Responsibility, Your Majesty?" "Yes," the king replied. "I appoint you as the leader of the Royal Guard's Intelligence and Observation Unit. You will oversee the security of Eldoria, gather information, and train others in the skills you have demonstrated. Your role will be crucial to our safety and the future of the kingdom." Darien bowed deeply. "I accept this honor, Your Majesty. I will serve Eldoria faithfully." The following weeks were filled with preparation and training. Darien worked with Fenric, Leora, and Gavrin to strengthen the Royal Guard's intelligence operations. They created watchtowers, patrol routes, and communication methods to ensure that no threat could approach the kingdom unseen. Despite the calm in the kingdom, the memory of the cloaked figure's plan remained a lesson for all. Eldoria's citizens continued their lives peacefully, unaware of the dangers that had almost touched them. The royal guard moved among them quietly, vigilant and proud. One evening, as Darien stood atop the palace walls, he observed the northern forest once more. The lights were gone, replaced by the gentle glow of fireflies. He felt a quiet satisfaction. The enemy had been clever, but the loyalty and courage of Eldoria's defenders had been stronger. King Charles joined him, leaning on the balcony railing. "You have done more than protect the kingdom," he said. "You have reminded me of the importance of trust, patience, and wisdom. Leadership is not only about giving orders, but understanding those who serve." Darien looked at the king. "Your Majesty, you have always guided us with fairness and wisdom. It is because of your leadership that we can act with courage and honor." The king smiled. "Perhaps, Darien, the greatest strength of Eldoria is not in its walls or armies, but in its people. Loyal, brave, and true, you and those like you ensure that our kingdom thrives." Weeks later, the cloaked figure and his followers were returned to their homelands under careful watch, with assurances that their actions would no longer threaten Eldoria. The kingdom was safe, and the lessons of the events lingered in the hearts of the royal guard. Darien, now leader of the observation unit, trained new recruits in the skills he had learned. Patience, courage, vigilance, and understanding. He taught them that strength came not only from weapons or numbers, but from careful observation, intelligence, and loyalty. Fenric, Leora, and Gavrin continued by his side, forming a team that would be remembered in Eldoria's history. Their dedication ensured that no threat, no matter how clever or hidden, could take the kingdom unprepared. King Charles often visited the observation unit, speaking with the guards and offering guidance. He watched as the young leaders trained the next generation, knowing that Eldoria's future was secure in capable hands. One evening, as the sun set over the kingdom, Darien reflected on all that had happened. He remembered the initial orders, the false accusations, the investigation, and the confrontation with the enemy. He thought about loyalty, courage, wisdom, and the importance of trusting the truth. Each experience had shaped him, strengthened him, and prepared him for the responsibilities he now held. The kingdom slept peacefully under the watch of its royal guard, the people safe and unaware of the dangers that had threatened them, and in the hearts of those who served Darien, Fenric, Leora, Gavrin, and all the guards, there was a quiet pride and a steadfast determination to protect Eldoria at any cost. King Charles looked across the balcony, his eyes resting on the horizon. The kingdom was safe and its defenders were ready. He smiled, knowing that the lessons learned from recent events would guide Eldoria for generations. Darien stood beside him, silent but confident. The young guard who had once faced suspicion and doubt had become a leader, a protector, and a symbol of loyalty and courage. The kingdom was stronger for it, and the bond between the king and his royal guard had never been closer. And so Eldoria thrived, its people safe, its walls strong, and its royal guard vigilant. Threats could come from shadows or distant lands, but as long as courage, loyalty, and wisdom guided its defenders, the kingdom would endure. Darien knew that the challenges of leadership and protection were ongoing, but he also knew that with trust, careful observation, and unwavering courage, Eldoria would face whatever came next. The kingdom was not only protected by walls and soldiers, but by the hearts of those who served faithfully, and Darien's heart, like many others, would always be devoted to its safety. The story of courage, truth, and loyalty had reached its end, yet the spirit of vigilance and honor would continue in Eldoria forever, a reminder that the strength of a kingdom lies not only in power, but in the loyalty and wisdom of those who defend it.